Hey, I'm Brendon from Panic at the Disco, and we're going to be talking to you today about VOX. My guitar rig is pretty simple actually, and VOX makes that possible because I don't really need to add a bunch of toys. I just need something that's cuts through really mid-range, which the AC30 does for me. And then some songs I use the Night Train as well, just because it adds a little bit more of that lead tone that I really love. I think, yeah, for me, like, simpler is easier. It just makes it a little more fun to play through all the songs, and it just has kind of my favorite tone so far. And yeah, I think for me the AC30 and the Night Train just kind of perfected it.
I think for the VOX AC30s, where we get most of our main tone, is honestly pretty, I think as Brendon already said, plug and play. Most of the EQ is right down the middle for us. I mean, you know, VOX has done a wonderful job over the years of, you know, being consistent, but also adding a little new flavors of technologies as they come along. And you know, it's they started out with a great product with the early AC30s, and kind of kept just going with that. So we really do very little EQing, and you know, we just kind of turn it on and turn it up. And as a testament to that fact, I mean, for Brendon especially, as you know, most of the main rhythm parts of the songs he plays guitar on, we don't even have to put any effects into a signal chain. I mean, all the expression that he gets in the song come between the relationship between the guitar and the amplifier. And I think that's something important for anybody, you know, starting out as a guitar player, is to understand that, you know, they work pretty well together without adding a lot of stuff to them. And for Kenny's rig, it's much the same thing. Most of his main direct tone comes just from the amplifier. We use very little bit of gain structuring or any sort of distortion pedals, and when we do, it's just for a little bit of the boost. But as you can tell from the rest of his pedal setup, it's mostly, all of his pedals are texture, delay, flanges, reverbs, that sort of thing. So it kind of, you know, that's how we can get the sounds that were on the record, is by using those sort of, you know, combinations of reverbs with your delays and things like that. And as a technician, I don't like using a lot of stacked distortions. That kind of muddies the water, and you know, and again, these AC30s, they sound great when you turn them on, so there's not a lot we have to do to them.
Hello there, my name's Kenny Harris, play guitar for Panic at the Disco. Talk to you about the VOX AC30 today. I got my first AC30 in 1999. It was a present from my mommy and daddy. I was you know, in bands, really into guitar, and I just wanted that amp that was like, this is the one. I went and saw Radiohead at Red Rocks, and I was just listening to all those tones on the record. I was just like, okay, man, what has he got? He's got to have this. He's got to have that. One of these just sitting up on stage, just loud and proud. And so that kind of made the decision for me. Like, this amp is, despite its size, really all you need for like clubs, stadiums. It is loud and powerful. And what I've done with Kyle, is when we first started working together, we sort of tried to take, like, distortion pedals are great and they have their place, but what I really wanted was that sound of the amp being driven. And then depending on how you play it, that's what you're going to get out of it. So you can, you know, be sitting there, you can have the amp be that thing that's giving you the distortion and the gain. And so we just sat there, took all the effects out of it, and really worked on this sound. And with a VOX, it's not hard. You just drive it, find the right tone for you, where your guitars live. And we found it pretty much right away. We pushed this girl pretty hard. We've got the Bulldog, Celestron Bulldog blue backs in there, right? And those things sing. They're awesome. And the only thing I really use for a distortion is an MXR micro amp, which is awesome. It just sort of takes your whole sound and does that a little bit, but doesn't really affect the sound that you get.
And one of the things that's pretty cool about the AC30 is, I mean, it comes with a built-in reverb that sounds great. I mean, it sounds like anywhere from a small room like this to like a concert hall. And you can kind of mess around with that a little bit too, but that really adds so much room to your playing. If you're playing big open chords, you really, I mean, it's pretty simple, it's pretty nice to have that space filled with a verb that's that consistent. We plug in and play because the amps are just great the way they are, we don't really need to boost anything, but a lot of the fun comes in when you have pedals like chorus, delay, flange, reverb, all that kind of stuff. And that's really a lot of the fun too. Like you can figure out different ways of playing based around another sound. So like if you want to, throw in another little octavizer and add a lower or higher octave, I mean, you can figure out new ways of playing, like what to play, what you don't like, what you do like. And that just becomes part of the fun. I mean, when you start messing around with tones and like, flanges and phasing out a guitar sound to double, I mean, chorus is always nice, a little high intensity, low rate. It's always kind of fun to do that kind of stuff. I don't know, I think for me, yeah, I never really boost the amps too much because I don't like it to get too messy, it gets too noisy, and I mean the AC30 takes care of all that stuff. It really just sounds awesome. So we can kind of show you how simple VOX is for a very good reason, because you can do a lot of different stuff with just a couple knobs. So this is just dry. This is one of my favorite sounds on the AC30. It's just dead stop, whenever you're holding the chords. So it's pretty. I like that. But then if you go in here, I mean, there's speed, there's depth for tremolo, there's all kinds of stuff. So I think like, I don't know, maybe do you want to just boost it up a little bit? Well, there's tone cut. I guess we can do this. Get a little bit. It's too loud, isn't it? There's the speed up. All right. So tremolo. You can hear it. I mean, that's a pretty deep cut for having a stock tremolo on your amp, which is awesome. Speeds. That's pretty versatile. So let's take that off. Take off the depth. So now the reverb, I mean, you can do anything from, it's a little subtle, you get a little bit of that, a little bit of that room sound. It doesn't sound too big, or we can just kick it up a little bit. It just adds, that like spring slap is so good. Yeah, picking style, man, it's all personal. It's whatever you want to do. I never really took lessons, so I kind of just it was whatever felt natural. So for me, it was kind of like a side swipe to the guitar strings where it kind of scrapes along the coils. I always liked how that added a little bit of grit to the tone. And my favorite sound through the AC30 and sometimes the Night Train really has that mid-range cut. So you really hear that, it's a defined kind of strum. It's not really like dead on straight through. It's a little side swipe through the coil, so you get a little bit more of that grit, kind of adds a little more gain without having to blow it out, blow the sound out. Try to keep it low so you can hear like how it scrapes the strings. Because a lot of people, go straight down, where it's kind of just swacking at the string. But I like a little bit of that in there, I don't know, I just like the way it sounds. It just kind of cuts a little bit harder. It's also in drop D, so that's super easy. I mean, you can play it up here. You know, a little bit of that sideways action. You don't want to go straight down. It gets difficult. If you have a difficult riff to learn, for me, honestly, it's just take time with it. That was really the biggest key to, you know, just spend time with it. Just spend a lot of time learning the riff, slowing it down piece by piece. I mean, if it's really, really tough, then go back to something more simple and try to learn that. You know, don't try to jump into something that is too difficult. I think
Walks before you can.
yeah, just play what's comfortable, you know? You don't want to just overextend your boundaries or try to like strain yourself, you know, get carpal tunnel. You don't want to do that.
Another big banger in the set is Nicotine. And Nicotine's a really, really cool riff that's interesting because it was written on a synth, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And so it's, to translate it into the guitar player's brain, it really doesn't make a ton of sense. So it's one of those, we were talking earlier about how to learn a riff. If you have any sort of recording platform, GarageBand, whatever, a good way to learn a riff is to just loop that section and just keep it going and just keep playing, keep listening to it. And don't start out trying to learn the riff with the guitar in your hands. Something I have to tell myself every single time. But just really listen, because if you're trying to play while listening, it's going to affect what you're hearing. So really just listen to it for a while, sing it to yourself, and that's a good way to learn a riff. The Nicotine riff is interesting because it was written on a synth. And so for a guitar player's brain, it's kind of turned around. And so that one's definitely one that you just want to commit to muscle memory. But yeah, it's...
If you feel like you are not so good at playing bar chords, then, you know, don't play them. Just play to your strengths. You don't have to play bar chords. I mean, yeah, play what's comfortable. Do some open chords, you know? Yeah, I think after a while, if you figure out what you like, what you don't like, if you feel like you're not good at bar chords, power chords, play to your strengths. Figure out what you are good at, what you're comfortable with. Just stick to that.
Yeah, so we run this through the top boost channel, and the settings are, it's looking like I have a little bit of reverb on there, just a touch. I also have a reverb/delay mix pedal that kind of also adds to that, but that is nice to have just something built in that you love the sound. And I think really the best part about this amp is if all of my effects just went to shit, I could still just have a chord, go into this and play a show. And well, hopefully the guitar will stay in tune, but I could just make it happen with this. This amp sounds that good. On this tour, we're covering Bohemian Rhapsody, which, as many of you know, Brian May is one of the greatest of all time, and his tone is so incredibly unique and specific to him that we had a challenge on our hands. He plays a guitar that he built with his father in 1964 out of a piece of driftwood, which I was fresh out of those, and he also plays with, was it a 2-pence piece on gold-plated strings through 3 AC30s, and his rack unit, which Kyle is desperately trying to get me into, but I'm a bit of a dinosaur, and I like to see what I'm stomping on, but he says by next tour, I'll just have one robot there that tells me what I stomp on. But until then, I get to see all the pretty colors. But he has, I think, 3 rack units, looks like, to do his thing.
1 rack unit and 2 backups.
2 backups. 1 rack unit and 2 backups. Edit that out. Yeah.
Kenny, don't make mistakes.
One rack unit and 2 backups. So, you know, given the fact that we aren't Queen all the time, we had to find a way to get this for just this one tone. Kyle and I went through the internet, and which is a great tool, by the way, kids, if you're looking for how to do something or if you want things to sound a certain way. Check out how your heroes have done it. It's all up online. Actually just switched from the top boost to the low boost and added EQ pedal to really scoop the tone out. And so to get that signature tone, we've added a little bit of fuzz. So yeah, that is basically his tone, and I was talking to Kyle a lot about this. It comes from the tips of your fingers, and that's why the fuzz actually makes it so you can play it pretty delicately. And his bends are so specific that it's important while you're playing to be listening more than anything. It's not just a face melter. You always have to have your ear on to make sure you're getting all the way up to those bends. So anyway, that's enough about Queen. Yeah, the best part about the AC30 for me is that it's basically my consistent, always sounds good, and I really use the guitars, and you know, I feel like all the sound really comes from your fingertips, and that's what's important. And by switching the guitars, you have a whole new character, and so using that more than rotating, trying to go between effects units and different distortions. Really, the amp consistently gives you a great sound, and then you can play around with guitars. But as a pure, I think that if you don't have a good sound between here and here, then you don't got and no matter how many effects you put on top of it, it's not going to make a difference. So yeah, a good amp, a guitar that's in tune, and that should be all you need. The rest is really, the sound comes from you and your fingers and the intensity that you want to play something. So yeah, early on playing guitar, I was really heavily influenced by like Radiohead, a bunch of like spacey rock bands. So I started with a 2-tiered pedal board before I probably even knew how to play most of this stuff. So effects are awesome, but don't let them distract you from learning how to play your instrument first, because that's the main part. Those things will all betray you eventually. And it'll be up to you and an amp, and you still need to make it happen. Casual Affair is one of my favorites to play during the set, and we have snuck a little harmonist onto it, so I think you'll be able to hear you can hear it on higher notes especially, but like a, hear it there at the end? So it just, basically we have it in the key of the song, and it just makes the guitar that much wider. So and you can hear the little, the harmonist is giving it those high frequencies, and just makes the sound wider. The point of a lot of these effects is like, unless you're being hypercritical and hearing them by themselves, they shouldn't do anything other than make it bigger. So especially with the harmonist. But then started out playing guitar, and I was always the lead guitar player, so I was much more interested in lead parts and counter melodies and that sort of thing. But I think one of the most important things for a lead guitar player, any guitar player, is really learning how to do solid rhythm stuff, because that's such a big part of like really knowing, like being tasteful and making the right choices. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people play guitar fast and pretty well. I think what separates great guitar players is the choices that they make, which is aka Mike Campbell, one of my favorite, most tasteful guitar players of all time. George Harrison, same thing. Just you can sing their solos, and that to me is like, that says something. They could probably play a lot more notes, but it's not necessary, and in fact it kind of takes away from the beauty of the part and playing guitar. It's not always about more. Less is more most of the time. So I am not aware of a picking style that I have. I have one because I do play with a pick, but I think a lot of what I've seen and learned over the years is that a lot of times I'll use these guys also as picks. Like I'll get in there. So I'm getting multiple notes at once with the pick and these fingers, so it's like. So the AC30 is a 30 watt amp, and what a lot of people don't know is, honestly, people buy big amps and buy these things, and I've played stadiums and tiny rat hole clubs, and this is really all the amp you need. In fact, sometimes you don't even need this much of an amp. You can definitely scale down because your stage volume, although it might rock to you, it ultimately might take over and make the whole band sound bad if you're in a small setting, which really the ultimate goal as a band, I think, is to sound the best you can together. And that means that you have to be conscious of stage volume and overwhelming everyone else. And I played, big arena stadiums and tiny, rat hole clubs, and this has been my guy the whole time. It's really all I need, really, my perfect amp.